Hello and welcome to the panel where we take a look at graphic novels and talk about their story, art, and everything in between. On this episode, we're going on a mission with the god of mischief himself, Loki, as we deep dive into Al Ewing's Loki, Agent of Asgard. Hi everyone. So joining me today we have Sharon Rose, an immensely talented cosplayer featured on Marvel's digital series Marvel Becoming, as well as being a writer and artist. Hi Sharon.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on. And we also have coordinator for Ocean City Comic Con, editor at PLB Comics, and freelance letterer of works including Stargate Atlantis, Hearts and Mind, James Doofendash.
Hey, how are you? Doofendock, close enough.
Doofendock. Oh, God. I meant to ask you that before we started, and then I was like, oh, no, we're starting. Okay.
I couldn't spell it till the 6th grade. Don't feel bad.
Oh, no. Well, I hope you guys are doing all right this weekend, or this week.
Oh, we are.
I know it's a little bit of a short week, so I'm kind of thrown off. I don't know about you guys.
I've been thrown off for a year and a half. I don't even know what day it is anymore.
That's very,
Here in central
very
Pennsylvania, it is raining, but we have had both 60-degree and 90-degree weather, so it's a little crazy.
Okay, so just destined to get you the flu or something.
Yeah.
Now, Sharon, I noticed behind you that you have some of your cosplays, including your Loki cosplay, which is perfect for today. Tell us a little bit about why you chose to cosplay as Loki. Like, what inspired you?
Well, I love details and I love really interesting characters, and I feel like who better to embody both of those things than Loki? I've always loved how he's looked in the comics. And specifically, I love that he has this shape-shifting quality. So I thought it would be really fantastic to bring to life his Lady Loki form. And so I did a lot of research on Norse mythology and the comics. And I also brought to life some details that you see from Tom Hiddleston's Marvel screen accurate costume, but I made it my own. So I had a lot of fun bringing it to life with foam and leather and a lot of coffee and tears. This is actually the first costume that I have used thermoplastics, and it's the first costume where I drafted my own pattern completely from scratch. So of course I would start with these interlocking woven strips because of course you do. It's the simplest thing you can do. I really love it. I feel like I become a totally different personality when I put on Loki. I'm rather introverted, actually, even though I'm on this panel talking with you awesome kids. So when I put this on, I just feel like taller and larger than life, like I can rule the entire world. You can see it even in my body language in the pictures. I don't know who that person is. It's a lot of fun. And also, bonus, my friends can find me on the convention floor very easily because those horns are ridiculous.
You're gonna duck under doors.
Yes, kind of have to like
lower under doors. Yeah.
Now, how much do they weigh? Are they heavy?
They're not too heavy. I actually have them over here. They're pretty lightweight. They're just very big. To give you perspective, my whole head can fit in the cavity of one of the horns. They're actually really, really lightweight. I made the horns out of foam, styrofoam, or not styrofoam, like hard, almost florist foam, and then I covered them with Terraflex, which is similar to Warbler. And that is honestly the bulk of the weight. The base is made out of some thermoplastic and EVA foam. So they're just top heavy in terms of balance, not in terms of like actual weight. So the gems in the back counterbalance all the weight from the front. They're not just for looks.
Oh,
I had to get really heavy glass dangly bits for the back of the horns to just kind of like keep them up and not falling forward.
That's super smart.
Yeah, that's
Very, very scientific. And by scientific, I mean the first time I put them on, they started falling, and I thought, oh no, I have to do something about this.
Oh no!
But it worked out really well because that extra feature, I think, really is unique. I don't really see a whole lot of people embellishing their horns, but it feels right. Loki is so extra. Of course, Loki would add extra dangly, sparkly things to the horns if given the chance. At least in my world, Loki would.
I like that. I love it. And
Thank you.
Now, James, you are coordinating all of Ocean City Comic Con. So, how is that going now that COVID is going on? Like, how has that been?
Well, I mean, obviously we had to cancel last year. I mean, I canceled all the way back in August. It was just obvious. You know what I mean? At that point, even I just wasn't going to put 6,000 people in a room. It's like, no, not during a pandemic. Thank you. And this year, things are looking a little better, I think. It seems to me that, things are moving in the right direction. So I think by December, we're going to be in a much better place. We're going to do some safety things that won't put onerous on anybody else, but it'll be just, work for us effectively. I think it's been weird. It's been strange to try to kind of book people because everybody's sort of in flux as far as what they're going to be doing, which I understand completely. I am. You know what I mean? It's one of those. So it's going to be an interesting year, I think, for events overall. And it's good to see things kind of creeping back open safely. It's good to see shells opening up slowly, which is the right way to do it. And yeah, I mean, we'll see. It's kind of where we're at.
Well, I'm really excited that you guys are opening back up. I think we're ready for cons as long as it's done safely and everyone's being safe, and I think we're all ready for it. So, yeah, exciting news. All right. Now, before we get started, I do want to just add a happy birthday to McLovin, who turns 40 today. This has been going viral all day today. This made me feel really old. So according to his driver's license, McLovin is 40 today. So in case anyone wanted to feel a tad bit older today, there you go. I love it. It's so great. Oh my gosh. Yes, there we go.
The worst part is that makes me younger.
Oh my goodness.
This is so good. Oh
I definitely feel older.
Yeah,
I still feel like the 70s were only 20 to 30 years ago. That's where my headspace is going to be for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I never believed my parents when they said that stuff, and now I'm like, oh man, they were right. I don't want to admit they were right, but dang it. All right, let's go ahead and start jumping into the book, and let's get going. So, Loki, Agent of Asgard was written by Al Ewing, illustrated by Lee Garbett, and colored by Nolan Woodard, and published in 2014. The premise is Kid Loki is all grown up, and the God of Mischief is stronger, smarter, sexier, and just plain sneakier than ever before. As Asgardia's one-man secret service, he's ready to lie, cheat, steal, bluff, and snog his way through the twistiest, turniest, and most treacherous missions the All-Mother can throw at him, starting with a heart-stopping heist on Avengers Tower and the death of Thor. And that's just the beginning. All right, so quick take before we get into initial details. What did you guys think of the story? The story overall. What did you think?
Go ahead,
James
Joe.
first.
Oh, no.
Okay.
All right,
We're going to do this the whole time. I
I
loved it. And not just because I love Loki. I really thought it was smart, and it was even more funny than I was expecting. So that was kind of a nice bonus, I guess, just like when I every so many pages would snort in my living room and scare my cat. I loved it. I thought the art was fantastic and really dynamic, and the writing just was so on point. I could hear the character banter in my head.
And what about you, James?
I like that. I mean, I like heist stuff a lot, and I like spy stuff a lot, and so I'm like, oh, okay, well, this is my book, I guess. Because it's both of those things, and it works within those genres, but also lampoons those genres, which I think is even better because those genres are both so silly at their core that you can't make, you know what I mean, when you try to kind of really do serious stuff with them without any levity, they don't work as well as when you sort of, tweak it and make fun of it a little bit while you're actually in that genre. So I enjoyed it a lot. I think it just the writing was fantastic on it, so I enjoyed it.
All right, let's go ahead and deep dive into that by going straight into the story. Al Ewing started his career writing for 2000 AD and regular stints on Judge Dredd. But prior to writing on Jennifer's Blood for Dynamite through Garth Ennis, he created a comedy blog, The Diary of Ralph Dibny. And since writing Mighty Avengers and Loki, Agent of Asgard, he's written New Avengers, US Avengers, Ultimates, and The Immortal Hulk. All right, now let's deep dive into the story. Now, what did you think? Let's go ahead and start with James. What did you think of the plot of the story?
I think it was fun. Like I said, I'm a sucker for a heist story. I'm a sucker for spy stories, and this has got both of those a lot as within a genre that I enjoy. And I actually like Loki is one of those characters that when he's sort of first introduced, he's just sort of that flat villain character. I'm talking back in the 60s, where you kind of imagine he has Skeletor's voice. He's like, "Oh, I'll get you, Avengers, you boobs," like, and that's sort of it, Whereas, and I love this about villains in modern comics generally, is that he's given so much more life and voice and character. And villains, honestly, are generally more interesting than heroes. Not in any kind of edgy way, but usually their motivations are significantly more varied. They come to this sort of life from all different aspects, where the heroes are generally like, we do it right and all that good stuff, with some variance. But the villains really, I feel like they're more varied and more interesting. And Loki especially, I mean, we're talking about a trickster god. So to show him in multiple forms within a story works so well. Also, I love the fact that this story shows how much Loki thinks he's smarter than everybody else, including himself. Not just everybody else, himself. He is literally tormenting himself through the story in order to show himself that he is the smartest guy in the room. And to me, that's genius. It's he's not taking pity on himself at all, his past self at all. He's like, oh no, I'm going to torment you for the funsies, and look at how fun it is that I'm tormenting you. Poke, 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 poke. And oh no, all that stuff you did, worthless. I'm still going to win. You know what I mean? And it's just great to watch this sort of, almost multiple personalities within Loki himself, and to show how much he sort of hates everybody, including himself. And that's what I really loved about the story. And all the sight gags and stuff in it were fantastic as well.
Yeah, I loved how it really was like an interplay of like himself versus himself, like almost like a spy versus spy kind of like aspect to it. Oh, it was fantastic. What about you, Sharon?
I just agree with everything you said. I think the component of diving into all the different layers of who Loki is was incredibly well done. And there's a scene where he encounters someone who sees only the truth, can see through anybody, any entity's lies, and he knows this. And there's a scene when he's discussing during a heist that he took on another form, and she was almost confused, saying like, well, wait a minute, because she can't be lied to. And he says, I'm always myself. So I think that was incredible, because here we see that even though through this entire story arc, he is trying to defeat his old self. And we see him shift, and we see him lie and cheat and do all of his slippery, tricky ways. But those various parts of his personality, they're all true to who he is. So when Loki is Lady Loki, he's fully Loki. When he's his young self, he's fully Loki. When Loki is old, kind of like evil trickster god Loki in the most diabolical of forms, fully Loki. So I just kind of really loved that, throughout the entire time that he's trying to kind of rewrite his own story, try to rewrite his destiny, if you will, he's still leaning into all of his old tricks, right? He wants to do good. He wants to kind of use his powers in a different way from what he used to. But he's still kind of, lying and cheating and stealing. The heist was incredible. I felt very much like there was a Charlie's Angels kind of Ocean's 11 vibe going on. Like James had said, it didn't take itself too seriously, but that made it even better because it was in on its own joke, kind of like how Loki is in on his own joke and schemes throughout the entire story.
Very, very true. No, I totally got that. And I feel like it was really one of like the strengths to the story is how it was just interwoven and whatnot. Now, did you have a particular strongest aspect for you of what the story brought out?
For me, let's see. I feel like book club. I literally posted.
Let's say you're very scientific with this.
I know, right? I'm like super serious. I feel like Hermione Granger with all my Post-it notes. I think what was really fun is even though we got to see a lot of the lore and history, we did spend a lot of time in modern day. And the very first time that Loki enters the tower, he says, "Hello, the Avengers." Just you see that there's so much humor, especially with contemporary Loki. I really, really love that he loves breakfast meats. he appreciates a lot more about humanity. I think older Loki has grown tired of humanity or doesn't even give them, any thought. But this Loki, I think, is enjoying gallivanting and yes, and singing in the shower, and sort of teasing the Avengers as he does. I love that. There's even reference to cosplay, which made me laugh out loud. This sort of very meta take on like the story is aware of its fandom.
I got that too.
And Loki would be aware of its fandom, so it's kind of perfect.
Yeah, no, I totally got that. When I saw the cosplay thing, I cracked up. That was so funny. What about you, James? Did you have something that really stood out for you in the story that made it super strong for you?
It was beautifully written to start with. Again, I think like I said, the fact that Loki sort of hates everybody, including himself, was so sort of ingrained into the whole tale, that you almost never forget it throughout. As far as sight gags, and I love the bazooka, by the way. I killed it. I killed a fish with a bazooka. That's hysterical. And then like the sight gag on the plane where the guy's reading an article about how there's something on the wing has become a trope, and you see them on the wing, and then just if you look down, there's the guy saying, "Hey, stewardess, there's something on the wing." Is actually reading an article about how that's a movie trope and it's overused, and I thought that was really funny. Yeah, it's like the next panel, you see the guy and he's holding his tablet. I think it's the title page actually for that issue within the trade. But yeah, I really enjoyed the sight gags. I really enjoyed just the comedy aspect of it. Again, they're funny books. They should be funny. Which is always sort of my take on comic books generally is just please don't take them too seriously. They're not meant to be taken that seriously for the most part.
Yeah.
So.
No, and I think that's a credit to the writing because as you guys were both saying earlier about how you can really tell the personalities of each character. Each character speaks differently, which is, I think, something that is really difficult to do within comics is to give each and every single character a personality through the way that they talk. And it was just beautifully done in this.
I actually, from a lettering standpoint, and I'm going to jump into that for a minute. Part of that really is the lettering too, and it's something you don't notice, which means it's good lettering because you didn't notice it. But especially with Asgardians generally, that can devolve into a ransom note pretty quickly, meaning everybody's got their own font and different color and everything else, and it becomes clunky on the page and everything. And you see this. However, I'm going to say that Cowles did a beautiful job on this. He was able to sort of have those different fonts, have the Asgardian font, which is a specific thing, and then have us mere mortals down here on Midgard have our own font and everything else, and do colors and everything else without it being distracting. I can think, and that helps to give everybody their own voice in your mind without really having to tell you that. You automatically translate that as a reader into them having a separate voice from somebody else with a different font face. And that's always a really cool thing to see. And as I say, sometimes that can get out of hand. I remember a run on Fantastic Four where they decided everybody was going to have like their own speech bubble, and like Johnny's were on fire and Ben's were all rocky, and Sue's were like half opacity, and it got really like distracting on the page, because it was sort of pulling away from the art because it was just so upfront, and it shouldn't have been. So I think part of that vocalization of characters, I think, is credit to the letterer as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. I noticed that about the letter boxes. That was really cool. I didn't know about the Fantastic Four thing. That's really neat. But yeah, oh my god, that would make my like eyes go crazy on a page. All right, now did either of you have like a favorite line? I know, Sharon, you were saying something before, which is why I bring it up.
I have a few. So Clint says, "You sure this is Loki? He looks kind of One Direction-y." And I just lost it. Just very, very funny. And not a specific line per se, but just the conversations that happen between Verity, who is the character I was talking about earlier, who can see through to the truth of anything, and Loki. They're such juxtaposed characters. So I really felt like what came through in their dialogue was loneliness for both of them for different reasons. So Verity has experienced her whole life of knowing when everyone around her is not telling her the complete truth or is holding back information. And so she doesn't trust anyone. And Loki has spent his entire life only knowing how to trick and deceive everyone. And therefore, no one trusts him. So he's lonely. And so I thought it was a really interesting way that those two came together. And even though Loki's kind of using her during this whole caper situation, he's using her skill set to benefit him. I think there might be more respect going on there than meets the eye. So I really liked their whole dialogue. That entire sequence was really well done.
Agreed. Yeah, I enjoyed it as well.
Right, you, James, did you have any particular line or instance that really stuck out for you?
I liked when Loki is kind of phoning back to base, and when the All Mothers show up. Just how, just kind of like, he is with it all the time. Where it's just like, could you get out of my punch bowl? You know what I mean? Like, I have people coming over. What are you doing? And he's just sort of, he's grudgingly doing this. Yes, he's doing this because he wants to erase past sins. Yes, he wants to do this. But yes, look, he's got a people over in 5 minutes. Could you speed this up? And just his resignation with this, where it's just like, I guess this is what we're doing now. I really like that because it's not an over the top feeling. It's not a big flashy comic book moment. It is that just resignation with having to do things you have to do. And that I feel like that's such a universal human thing that I got to go to work. I got to mow the lawn. These are not big dramatic moments. And I feel like that sometimes those smaller, just human moments don't get portrayed as much as in comic books, so they don't feel as real, and just throwing a few of those seconds in there really brings that character back and says, hey, this I mean, Loki's not human, but you know what I mean? Like this is somebody who eats. This is someone who gets up in the morning. This is somebody who does these things and makes them significantly more relatable than watching them shoot lightning bolts out of a hammer. You know what I mean? Like, or turn into a fish to trick Thor or whatever. So yeah, that's what I liked. I like the quiet moments in the book.
Yeah, you get that real reality sense. All right, because we can't talk about the story and everything, as James was mentioning, without talking about the lettering and the artwork. So let's go ahead and move on to the artwork next. Lee Garbett is a British comic book artist who also worked on 2000 AD and Judge Dredd early in his career. Since then, he moved to DC Comics, working on a number of Batman titles and the first arc of The Outsiders. And for Marvel, he drew a 3-part crossover for Marvel titled Identity Wars, featuring Spider-Man, Hulk, and Deadpool. Alright, so let's go ahead and we will start with our artist here, Miss Sharon Rose. What did you think of the art of Loki, Agent of Asgard?
I loved it. It's really expressive, and by that I mean I felt like there's really fantastic movement throughout the panels. Yeah, I love that you're throwing up that one. Because it shows the use of color as well. You had just a really incredible use of moments where the entire page felt hot or felt cold, and I know a lot of that has to do with the coloring as well. But the drawing itself, there was such a distinct and subtle shift from stories that were happening in the present versus panels that are telling stories that happened hundreds or thousands of years ago or in another time entirely. So, for example, the entire, in the third volume, issue, your life is a story of already written. There's this almost watercolor quality. The line work is softer. It almost feels a little dreamy and like fantasy-like, more so than even the contemporary pages. And I thought that touch from the artist really helped to carry the fact that we're going back in time and we're telling a story that's going to be relevant in the now, but we're transporting you. So he really transported us with his line work and his approach to these characters. I loved it. I really, really loved the artwork a lot.
And James, your impression on the art?
Agreed. I actually was going to mention the softening of lines through flashback and the kind of warmer hues in that to give you that sort of flashback thing. And that does come from the color work. I mean, that's a lot of Woodard's color work there that does that as well. Another thing that I really like about Garbett's work, and always have actually, I like in his 2000 AD stuff as well, is his faces are incredibly expressive, and that works so well in this book because so much of this book is things that are either comedic or meant to be snarky or meant to be surprise, and so much of that is reflected in the faces of the characters of the book. And not necessarily even like this kind of big, but like this smirk that's coming off right here. And tomorrow I'll slay your dragon, and he's kind of giving you, I'll fix your little red wagon look there. And they're beautifully expressive. They really, I mean, you don't even have to put dialogue there. You could look at that and you know what I mean, kind of posit what they were saying, what they were thinking. So that's something I really like. And I mean, all the work from the big two is going to be pristine and perfect and lovely. It always is. But again, I mean, look at the madness in his face here. And then making fun of him in the next panel. He's picking on, himself basically here. And you can see it again. It just, the facial work is phenomenal. It's really, really beautiful.
Yeah, I think really the art really worked and lended itself to the story. And much like you were saying about the lettering and, the different types of voices that each character had through the writing, everything, it's one of those things where you can just see from the visuals that everything is different. It's coming from a different point of view. It's coming from someone, different. It's very complex, like for me, I wonder how complicated it had to be to work between the writers and the artists to kind of give everyone their own look, their own, working with the letterer to have like this different style. Like, I don't know, it's this complexity to it that really works to build it all together. And then I think you also get these amazingly glorious fan service pictures of Loki, which I'm all for. I don't know about you, Sharon, but I think with Loki, like,
I can't imagine why.
But Loki as a shapeshifter, it's kind of fan service for everyone as well, I think. Because he also makes a beautiful lady Loki, So I don't know. What about you, Sharon? Any cosplay inspirations there?
Oh, don't get me started. What I really love is that even though there are different iterations of Loki's garb, they definitely define and kind of timestamp, which variation of this entity are we looking at right now? From just the stylization of the horns to kind of, are we looking at older materials, like more natural furs? Are we looking at simpler, more vest-like garments? So I feel like all of that, even just down to the wardrobe choices for character design and the artwork and how it was drawn, that tells a story of the transition of Loki. And yet, even though they're different, there's a carrying through of thematic elements, of textures or specific symbols that, you see on the edge of his sleeve, a detail that you would see in an older iteration of Loki. And even though the horns are different here, we're seeing how, just the general shape is still there. It's just truncated. I just love that even if you put Loki elements on a more contemporary piece of clothing, it's still Loki. And that thematic element is really carrying through. I love it. So yes, I want to cosplay all of them. So that's a problem.
Now, was there a particular art moment that stood out for either of you?
Do you want to go, James, or me?
No, go ahead. You go ahead.
I love the transformation into the dragon in that arc, telling the story where over time we see this character get completely warped and consumed by magic and by the curse. And it's interesting because for me, it's made me think about monsters in the comics as a whole, that, we have so many we have alien species and races and like literal monsters. But this was interesting because we took a person or, a character and they transformed. It was like the outside became reflective of their heart and the darkness. And I think we see that in Loki too, even though Loki, older, more trickster god, evil god Loki, still looks like person. He becomes more manic, right? He becomes more monstrous in his wider than it should be grin, in his gleaming eyes. Contemporary Loki still looks very youthful. He looks like he could be in one direction, right? But we see that in time, the warped nature of Loki makes him very monstrous. And I personally saw kind of like a metaphor for that in the other story of the dragon, like parallelism, if you will.
Oh, very smart. What about you, James?
I also love the dragon. But I think my favorite part actually is when Loki sort of walks off the panel. That is great. That right there is such a cool, and I am always a big fan of using your gutters to do things. Like Mike Grell on Green Arrow back in the 80s, and people who know me will know that I use that as an example ad nauseum. Does things in the gutters that relate back into the story, subtle things, but even big stuff like this where he literally just walks out of that time period by walking off of the panel on the page and then onto a different one. It's just a cool usage. It's just a fun It's not something you see all the time. I mean, it's something you might see in a Deadpool comic because it's, you know, fourth wall breaking and all that. But this is, again, I think it's fun to be able to self-realize that, you know, books are in panels, and to be able to use that as part of the storytelling, and not just from a next, but oh yeah, we recognize there's panels. Here's this thing we can do, you know, to show you within the panel itself. So that's that. I think that was my favorite little thing.
I love it. So creative. All right, now we have deep dove through all of the art and the story. It's time to move on to our final thoughts. My big takeaway from this is that it literally felt like watching a movie, but I was reading it, because I could just see everything in my head so vividly, and everything was just so, everyone was so different and unique, and they all had their characters. I don't know, this is one of those comics that really, to me, played out as a movie in my head as I was reading it. And that, to me, is when I really get gripped on a comic, is where it just feels like it's this whole big story, bigger than just what's on the page. So for me, that was my big takeaway on this one. What about you, James?
I liked it because it does show all these different sides to Loki within one book. You know, he's not just one thing ever. The nature of a trickster god is that he's transitory, is that he is fluid in so many different ways. And this book really helps to illustrate that. You know, it shows the cruel, kind of cackling, you know, dolt, idiot, moron kind of Loki that we're used to, that one right there. But it also shows the one that's kind of striving for acceptance a little bit. You know, he wants to be with the rest of the pantheon. He wants to be respected. You know, he is jealous of Thor, and not just for jealousy's sake. He wants some of that. And it shows him as a little bit as a loving brother. Let's go have a beer with Thor. Yeah, we hate each other most of the time. Here's another beer. Also, Thor in an AHA t-shirt. Beautiful. As a new wave fan, I was like, literally, you know, did what was on the shirt. But no, I enjoyed it. And again, you know, as the secret agent thing, it's perfect. Who else should be a secret agent for Asgardia? Who? You know what I mean? Like Loki, the trickster god. Yeah, that's probably a good one. But also showing that he is never truly in it for anybody else but him. At the end of the day, sure, he might be helping this week, but only because it's good for him. You know what I mean? It's Loki never really comes out as evil, but sort of true neutral. You know, he's just like, yeah, I'll do whatever I need to do to make Loki come out on top at the end of this. You know, and if that means being a hero this week, well, that's what it means. And that's what I've always liked about him, and especially in the last couple of decades, what they've done with him, is that he'll be anything he wants to be, and he'll help you, maybe, or he won't, maybe. You know, and that's sort of what the book came through for me, and I enjoyed it immensely.
I love that. That's a great summation. What about you, Sharon?
I think what I love the most about this is, even though we encountered the Avengers, this was very much Loki's story. So we really got to kind of step back and focus solely on who is Loki? What is his personality like right now? What are his motivations right now? And watch him struggle against himself, struggle against his old ways, which may still be his current ways. And I love that we got to see him, as James pointed out, while he's still kind of striving to change his story and try a different path, I don't think he's necessarily motivated by wanting to help others. I think he's perhaps intrigued by how him helping others can let himself be put on a different pedestal. So again, he's not necessarily evil Loki per se in this iteration, but he is very much, as per the usual, self-serving. The fun part is, as a reader, we get to watch him use those tricks up his sleeve in really unexpected and fun ways. They're definitely, we didn't really go into them, which I'm kind of glad, so the reader will get to experience. There were some plot twists here of unexpected sneakiness that Loki did that pivoted the development of the story in a different direction. And I love seeing that because old and new, Loki's always 20 steps ahead of even himself.
Oh, very smart. Now, I don't know about you guys, but this has made me way more interested in seeing the new Disney Plus show that's coming out. What about you guys? Are you guys excited? Is there anything that you're hoping to see from Loki in the show?
I'm excited. Honestly, so far, Disney Plus can do no wrong. I mean, as far as the Marvel shows are going. I mean, Vision and Scarlet Witch might have been the best superhero thing media-wise, in my opinion, period. I thought it was phenomenal. I loved it. You know, I love old TV too, so it's sort of, you know, in my wheelhouse. Falcon and Winter Soldier was fantastic. It was the buddy cop movie, you know, it was the buddy cop show I wanted, and I got it, and I loved it, and it was fantastic. And I can't imagine that Tom Hiddleston's going to do a show that's not going to be amazing. So I'm, you know, as an Asgardian fan anyway, as a Thor fan anyway, I was already excited for a Loki show. I loved him I love him in the MCU. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to love the show.
What about you, Sharon? Anything that you're hoping to see in the new show or looking forward to?
I love Tom Hiddleston as Loki. Like, in my opinion, he is Loki. But that being said, I really actually am hoping that the show explores that Loki is a shapeshifter. Loki is not even a he. You know, Loki is many different forms. So I'd love to see, you know, Lady Loki, or even, you know, an animal format of Loki, if it makes sense. And yeah, I'm kind of interested in seeing how Loki connects all the dots of what was happening behind the scenes. It'll be very interesting to see how the show ties to some of the other shows and movies that have happened or are on the horizon. So I can't wait to connect all those dots like a conspiracy theorist with my wall of yarn and string.
The multiverse makes that so much easier. Oh, it's not that Loki.
If Loki was an animal, though, what would he be?
I'm sorry, what?
If Loki was an animal, what would he be?
Well, there's already some in Norse mythology. He does turn into a fish to fool Thor. That was the reference from earlier. But yeah, he's actually turned into a bunch of stuff in Norse mythology, and I think in the comics too. Sharon, I cut you off. You were going to say something. What?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say basically what you were going to say. And a fox, I don't know. Yeah. I feel like Loki should be sly as a fox because Loki's sly as a fox.
Or a weasel. Yeah,
or a weasel.
Oh.
He is weasel.
Oh, those are some good choices.
Yeah.
Now, I did ask you both to do a little bit of homework, and that was to come up with some suggested readings. If someone liked this storyline, what should they try next? So, homework time. James, what's your suggested reading?
Okay, I have suggested reading, and I pulled books because I have giant racks of them behind me. So, as a quickie, and this is a throwback one, I'm sure you can get it in trades. Lorelei is in the story, and if you want to learn a little bit more about that character, it's Walt Simonson's created that character in this run of Thor. If you get into the 359, and her first appearance, I think, is the actual issue before this, but this was a good cover with her on it. So you can learn a little bit more about her in that era of Thor, of Walt Simonson's era of Thor. I told you I like spy and heist things, so I really enjoyed Spy Island from Image. It's available in trade. It's one collected thing. It's funny, it's goofy, it really spoofs and lampoons the spy format and all those little tropes and everything. It sort of, you know, digs into them a little bit and picks on them, and I enjoy it. And then for the heist aspect of it, I really liked Kaiju Score from Scout. If you've watched Army of the Dead, which I'm sure a lot of the viewers have watched it already, I have. Imagine sort of that format, except with giant monsters instead of zombies. And again, this is, I think it's a 5-issue, and it is available as a collected trade now too. So those are my suggestions.
Let me write this down. Wait, kaiju? What?
Okay. Kaiju Score, Spy
awesome.
Island, and then if you want to know more about Lorelei, Thor in the Walt Simonson era.
Great picks. And Sharon?
James did far more homework than I did. All of my homework was spent post-it noting this. But I do have a recommendation, just because it felt a little nostalgic. So I love David Peterson's Mouse Guard. Actually, I love anything David Peterson does. And the reason I felt it connected was beautiful artwork, and it felt like, you know, kind of lore that would span the centuries. It feels kind of like the throwback of, you know, old Loki, many millennia ago, if you will. And I felt like this is similar to that. So if you love mythology, if you love animals, you know, right? We want to see him, Loki as a weasel. But if you love animals in storytelling, I thought that this could be a really fun connection point to that. And other than that, I would just say anything Avengers related would be great, because then you get to see how the madness of Loki has affected all these characters through time and space, literally.
Those are some great choices, guys. Thank you guys so much for doing that homework. And for everyone else, this is your reminder to pick up Loki, Agent of Asgard at your local comic shop using comicshoplocator.com. Before we go, I want to ask our guests if they have anything that they would like to share, plug, let us know what's going on. Let's start with you, Sharon.
All right. I love making costumes, as you can see. And if you do too, I would encourage you to check out SheProp. It is a prop making and costume forum exclusively for women, non-binary, two-spirit, and trans makers, costumers, and artists. It's a really awesome space where we can share our knowledge, encourage one another, and it's just a wonderful community. I can't tell you how much I love it. It was started by Beverly Downman of Downman Creative Studios. We have a wonderful team of admins. Everyone there is there to support one another. And as for me, if you're interested in learning how I make these, because I love to encourage others and teach other people the same techniques that I use for this, I want to encourage others that they too can do it. You can find my cosplays and foam crafting tips on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as @SharonRoseCosplay.
Perfect. And I love that website. That is so awesome. Yay. All right. And what about you, James? What have you got to share with us?
Ocean City Comic Con, December 11th, Ocean City, Maryland. We are, we're planning it. We're going to do it this year. I've been back and forth at the convention center, and it is going to be a go if all things continue on the good road we're on. So I'm excited to be back to work on that. I feel like I've lost a year of my life. I know everyone has. And I was talking to Sharon earlier, and I've actually kind of gone gray over the past year, and no one's seen me. So I'm gonna come out of hiding, and people are gonna be like, "Oh my God, what cave did you come out of?" So I do look like the crazy hermit now. That I have been, quite honestly, for a year. But yeah, I'm really excited to get back into this. I'm really excited to be booking guests back up and having vendors and everything else, and talking to Sharon about it, and just having a good time. Feeling like I'm being productive again, which is if nothing else is wonderful. And then for PLB Comics, which is me and my two brothers from another mother who are actually brothers. Confusing, I know, it's all very Brady Bunch. We have John the Swamp Dude is the book that we're working on now, and that is Josh Shockley's book, and he is going to have issue 2 of that out probably by the December show. And then we will be, I guess our next show that will actually be sort of tabled at is going to be Dover Comic Con in Dover, Delaware, which is brutally hot because it's August outside on blacktop, but it's great. And it's very well attended and it's outside. So I'm going to feel pretty good about it. What are you two doing for Free Comic Book Day? Because it is August 14th this year.
I know. I'm excited. I'm ready to see all the comic books that are coming out and like make sure that I can go get them by heading there super early. Get in line. And maybe go in costume this year because it's been a while and I want to get like any usage out of cosplays right now. So
I'm bummed because it's the same day as Dover. Dover actually had the date before they moved Free Comic Book Day. So I'm not going to be able to get any of the free comics that I want. And there's so many good ones this year. I'm like, oh, man. So I'm like calling up all my friends with comic shops and like, yo, are you getting in these? Okay, cool. Because I always want the weirdo indie ones. I'm like, I know you're only getting 5 of them or whatever. Could you pull one of them for me? And they're like, yeah, I'm not supposed to do that. I'm like, okay. You know?
Oh. Thanks, friend.
But I might run away from my table and dive over to the comic shop in Dover and just be like, hey, let me get my stuff. I gotta go. So we'll see.
I'll probably be at my local comic shop, Comics Connection, in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. They have great people, and more than anything, they have so much fun with the community. So on Free Comic Book Day, there's always a line wrapped around the store. People come in costume. It's always a good time. So I think I will put on my geek t-shirt and sneakers and rock that out.
Nice. Oh, awesome.
I love Free Comic Book Day.
So do I. I mean, what's not to love about free comics? It's amazing.
It's Nerd Christmas.
It is.
We usually set up with at Collector's Corner. And it's always amazing. There's like 5,000 people that show up. It's crazy. And it's cool to see like the kids picking up comics, some for the first time, and parents not having that barrier of entry. You know what I mean? Where you kind of go in, you have to figure out what you want, and then it's going to be, X dollars or whatever. But the kid can kind of just look and just grab whatever. You know what I mean? It's awesome to see, people kind of getting indoctrinated into comicdom that don't normally show up for that sort of thing. And that's I think my favorite part of Free Comic Book Day. Sorry, I'm way off topic with this.
Oh, no, that's great. I mean, honestly, it's all about like meeting people in the community too. Like, I swear I've met some really cool friends from Free Comic Day and like being in line and like talking about the comics that we got. So I don't know, it just brings the whole geek community together. I'm excited.
Yep.
All right. Oh, we have a comment from the audience. From Karina, we have, Sharon, your costumes are amazing.
Oh, thank you, Karina. You're very sweet.
And Brian Spencer Cosplay saying, hi, James, nice collection.
Thank you. It is an illness.
Troy, James's room is like the inside of my head.
You should see the other side. It's worse.
So that's like the left side and the right side of the brain.
Yeah, this is the neat side, believe it or not.
I love it.
Oh, I love that. Oh, you guys have been really fun. And so has our audience. And those of you in the audience, if you have a graphic novel that you'd like for us to talk about, leave a comment below and your choice could be picked for a future episode. I want to thank our guests for joining us today. You guys made everything so much fun. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having us. Yeah.
Of course.
Thank you.
Everyone watching, make sure that you go follow them. And this is your reminder to also follow us at previewsworld.com, Previews World on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And also make sure to follow Free Comic Book Day so you can stay in the know of what's going to be available, what's happening, and your comicshoplocator.com, which will tell you where you can go for Free Comic Book Day. It's all connected, guys. So you want to follow them all to make sure you don't miss out on anything. So thank you guys so much for joining us today. It was a great talk. Remember that heroes are a dime a dozen, but comic fans are priceless, and we'll see you here next time. What graphic novel would you like to see us talk about on the panel? Let us know in the comments and your submission could be picked for a future episode.